All right, we're back, everybody, on this Monday night talking about the FDA full approval of the Pfizer vaccine. Got a couple of calls in. Callers, hang on just a moment. We will get to you. Our guest tonight is from Vanderbilt University Medical Center, Dr. Aimalohi Ahonkhai. She is assistant professor of infectious diseases there. And let's go to the phones now. And also, Taylor tells me there are some comments on our Facebook page. We're trying to pull those up so we can maybe, hopefully, if there's some questions there, we'll get them answered for you. Let us go to Rob first. Hey, Rob. Rob, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hey, go ahead. What's on your mind, sir?
To answer the question, no, I will not take it, even though it's FDA approved, and I don't knock anybody that would take it, take it. My mom asked me about taking it, and I said, that's your choice. The only question I've got, we've had a pretty good roll. We did good there for a while, and it seems like after the influx of migrants coming in, they were shipping them across the country. Seems like this has started, and anybody that's got any common sense knows there's a common barrier, common ground there. You know, you don't know what they had, and not knocking them or anybody, but we've brought a lot of people into the country that wasn't vaccinated. I know wasn't vaccinated. Does this seem to be the root cause? Like I said, not knocking anybody, and I appreciate y'all listening to me. Love everybody.
Oh, thanks, Rob. Real quick, what's your hesitancy? What's your decision, to not get vaccinated?
It's just something I'm going to tell you. I was in the military, and I've had more shots than Carter had little liver pills, as my daddy used to say.
Yeah, my dad said the same thing. All right. All right, Rob, thank you. We appreciate it. Thank you for calling in. Let's go back to Dr. Ahonkhai. He says he's just not going to get it. We know that there are a number of people, and I should point out, though, something else that we wanted to talk about is the legal aspect of this, and I don't know if Rob's still working or not, but a number of private employers, and we know the federal government now, they're mandating. You got to get the vaccine, and other places are saying if you don't. Some private companies have said if you're not vaccinated, we're going to add a certain amount of cost to your insurance payment each month. What do you say to that?
I think, my institution, Vanderbilt, is one that has mandated vaccination for all of its employees. And I think that, the bottom line is we are in a situation now where we have the Delta variant. I know you've discussed that on this show already, which is much more transmissible than the earlier variants of COVID-19. And if we don't put in place the best mitigation strategies we have, we can't get out of this pandemic. We know that vaccination truly is the best mitigation strategy that we have. So I think that those mandates are going to be critical to move us through and get us out of this pandemic.
Real quick, I just want to make a statement because I don't want Rob to think I'm just kind of ignoring part of his comment there about immigration. As far as I know, there's no real hard evidence that this latest surge is caused by a specific thing other than the virus doing what viruses do, and that is mutating and changing, which we know there have been a number of variants. So I just want to make that statement.
That's exactly right. I would agree with you there. And we know that viruses know no borders. We live in a global community now. So wherever there's travel, viruses can spread.
So explain to us a little bit, those who may not know about what viruses do and what we're dealing with here with this Delta variant, which seems to be the predominant strain, obviously showing up, causing so many positive cases. We know that this specific strain is extremely contagious, much more contagious than the original virus. What else can you tell us?
Right. Well, as you mentioned, it's at least twice as contagious as earlier strains in the United States. And we think a common analogy we're using is that it's as contagious as chickenpox, for those of us who remember getting chickenpox as a child. So it spreads very easily. And we also know that vaccines still work against the Delta variant, but the difference is that whereas in earlier strains, the vaccines seem to prevent infection in addition to hospitalization and deaths. The Delta variant is so contagious that it's more difficult for vaccines to prevent infection. So we're seeing infections, and people are describing breakthrough infections, but the vaccines are still very excellent at preventing people from being hospitalized, getting really sick, and then obviously the worst thing we want to avoid is from dying. So I want to make sure people are aware of the fact that the vaccines really still are working for the purpose that we need them to prevent people from getting very sick and to prevent people from dying, even from this Delta variant.
What do drug makers do to try to address these variants? I mean, is there, some sort of new formula in the works for the vaccine for down the line to address these variants?
Yes, we have to try and stay a few steps ahead, but
right.
These viruses are smart. My field, one of the viruses that I deal with quite frequently is HIV, another one, hepatitis C. Because viruses mutate so often when they replicate, what happens is that strains that are kind of make the virus better, faster, stronger, can develop each time they mutate. The way that we prevent them from mutating and replicating, at this point, the most effective way is vaccination. Mm-hmm. But in terms of pharmaceuticals, in terms of drug development, yes, what we try to do is focus on those areas of the virus that are critical for it to function, and so that it can't really mutate. Those are the kinds of targets that drug development tends to be focused on.
I want to go back to also the Pfizer and Moderna, these drug makers, they didn't exactly, when this pandemic hit, they didn't exactly just start from scratch. I mean, this is a coronavirus, so we know that there was also already research and development into the broad kind of range. So that helped, right? When it was just a matter of identifying, okay, this is COVID-19, and what do we need to do to work up a vaccine that potentially will help?
Most definitely. So, and even at Vanderbilt, where I am, we have some very experienced senior coronavirus researchers who have been researching coronavirus for decades. So the combination of the work that had already been done by coronavirus researchers, and then the technology for mRNA vaccines, which has been studied for decades in other fields, merging those two together really allowed us to take off running and find these candidates for COVID vaccines, which ultimately were more successful than we could have ever predicted. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of, we couldn't have forecasted that it would have gone this well, but we're fortunate that it did.
All right, let's go back to the phones, and Roger is holding. Hey, Roger, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing all right.
Okay, what's your comment or question?
My comment is not really to anybody, but it's to everybody that's listening to this show.
Okay.
I've been vaccinated. I've never had the mess. Don't want the mess.
Right.
And I'm begging everybody out there, please get vaccinated. Mm-hmm. Rob, this goes out to you too. You was in the military. You should know better than anybody what these things can do. Mm-hmm. Kids is getting it now, and it has nowhere else to go but to the kids. They're the ones that's worse off than anybody right now.
Right.
We need to get to herd immunity and get rid of this mess, because I want my life back.
Hey, that's a good point. Thank you so much, Roger. Hold on right there, Roger, because we're going to have to take a break here soon. But, I mean, that kind of sums it up right there. Just, I want my life back. I think we all feel that way, and there's a sense of frustration Because, you know, earlier this year we thought maybe we were turning a corner, and then all of a sudden another wave hits. We will actually, we're going to take a break here in just a second, Doctor. I don't want to ask you a question and then go into this, but I do want to talk about herd immunity and also what's happening with pediatric cases when we come back. Remind everybody we do have some lines open, 737+ if you'd like to join in. We'll go ahead and hit this break a few minutes early, and we'll be back with more right after this.